Mediterranean island of Cyprus has a rich history, beautiful beaches, and renowned wine-growing regions. But the country is also divided by ethnic conflict. It is separated into a Greek south and Turkish north. The island's Greek and Turkish communities have lived apart since Turkey invaded the north in 1974, after a brief Greek-inspired coup aimed at uniting Cyprus with Greece. Cyprus' ethnic schism has eluded numerous rounds of negotiations over more than 4 decades, and the leaders face complex issues that have calcified over time. Many factors have aligned to make a deal possible, including popular Greek and Turkish Cypriot leaders. The leaders will meet 3 more times in December as they try to build on momentum since the resumption of talks in May, and could finally be on the right path to a long-awaited agreement. Our focus this week is on Cyprus. Hello and welcome to our weekly focus. I'm Tal Heinrich. The long-standing dispute over the partition of Cyprus seems to be getting closer than ever to ending. Reunification might still be a big word at the moment, but negotiations led by advocates of the idea are making progress. Within the past week, in light of the increasing international interest in the Cyprus problem, the foreign affairs ministers of Russia and the United States visited the island. So Mr. Ioannis Kasoulides, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Cyprus, has been very busy lately, but we're honored to have him on the show today. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Hello, it's my pleasure to speak to you.
Tell us, what are the grounds for that recent cautious optimism?
Since last May, a lot of progress has been produced, but a lot of issues for resolving remain still to be resolved ahead of us.
In your opinion, what will it take in order to conclude these talks successfully? What are the main obstacles remaining?
The positions of either side need to meet, and we have in front of us, still not debated, the territorial issue and the security issue. They are both extremely sensitive issues for both sides, and this, along with what is remaining from the other chapters, have to be discussed at the end horizontally and in a way that we will have in front of us the whole picture. But allow me personally to be optimistic.
After meeting Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, you said that the talks had come a considerable way without needing the involvement of any foreign mediators. Do you see the parallel talks between Turkey and the European Union as an integral part of the Cyprus issue?
Yeah, first of all, I should say that it is remarkable that the progress achieved so far was done between the two communities without the interference of anybody else. The representative of the UN is just facilitating the talks, but nothing more. Mm-hmm. Secondly, I would say that there is definitely a problem with the accession negotiations of Turkey with the European Union and the desire of the European Union to accommodate Turkey in view of the very crucial role that is expected to be played by Turkey regarding the migratory movements into Europe. But let me say that both sides will retain their positions of the past. Turkey not recognizing the Republic of Cyprus, the Republic of Cyprus freezing a number of chapters of the accession negotiations with Turkey, mm-hmm. because Turkey does not fulfill its obligations that emanate from the accession negotiation progress.
So in your view, what should be the primal, the decisive unifying measure? Should it be a deal signed by the leaders or a referendum?
We need a deal to be agreed by the two sides and initialed by the two leaders. And then this agreed text, one text, will go to the people to be approved by a referendum. Two separate referenda, let's put it this way. One in the Greek Cypriot community and the other in the Turkish Cypriot community.
You know, Cyprus seemed to be getting a lot of positive international attention lately, thanks to the role it's playing in the fight against ISIS, the latest refugee crisis, and also these reunification talks. But how significant is it for you, especially in light of the negative spotlight that your country has been getting in recent years, you know, thanks to financial issues?
You know that our geographical location is very important, as you say, belonging to a neighborhood with a lot of turmoil, a lot of violence, the terrorism thriving, the problems for the fight against ISIS, the civil war in Syria, etc. I think that a settlement of the Cyprus question will be a multiplier in the efforts of Cyprus all these years, so we may become an oasis of tranquility and stability, and this will invite the designs for the Eastern Mediterranean to become an example of cooperation, particularly in the area of the hydrocarbons, between all the countries of the area, which also will include Turkey.
Mr. Ioannis Kasoulides, thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you very much.
3 years later, the Cyprus financial crisis of 2012 is still viewed as a focal point in testing the integrity of the Eurozone. The roots of that collapse, however, go back earlier, when the unproductive government of Cyprus started overspending, raising pension promises, and so forth. It all resulted in non-refunded state expenses, downgraded credit rating, and a highly criticized bailout deal. Now, to break this all down in a contemporary perspective, let's say hello to Mr. Sofronis Clerides from the Department of Economics at the University of Cyprus. Thank you for joining us. Hi.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
So first, can you tell us what has changed in the country financially 3 years after the crisis and as a result of the bailout deal?
Probably the most important positive development is that there has been a big improvement in the government finances. The budget deficits of previous years have been put under control. The government actually had a tiny surplus last year and is expecting something similar this year. So on the fiscal side, things are going quite well.
What lessons have been learned? Is the banking system still very much centralized? Is the too big to fall theory very much vivid as it was?
Well, you know, the other big component of the crisis was, of course, the big component of the crisis was, of course, the banking system, which was had grown very big. And the lesson we learned here is that I think uncontrolled capital inflows are dangerous because they led to a huge increase in the size of the banking sector, which ended up taking up too much risk, essentially. So now the financial sector has shrunk considerably. It has been stabilized. The banks have been recapitalized. It still has problems. So we have a very high fraction of non-performing loans in the banks that they are trying to find ways to deal with. But at least the system is now stabilized.
Mm-hmm. And who is mostly affected by the cuts that were imposed on deposits by the government? Whose savings were raided?
That's a good question. We don't really have a lot of hard data. Now, remember that this haircut amounted to about half the GDP of Cyprus, of the annual GDP. So it's a huge amount of money. Now, a big part of that, we don't really have a precise number, but some estimates are about 60% was by foreigners. But still, that leaves 40% of that it's by Cypriots, which is still a huge amount of money.
Mr. Sofronis Clerides, thank you so much for sharing your economical insights with us.
Thank you.
And now let's see what else is going on in Cyprus.
Last week, Cyprus saw a plethora of diplomatic visits from some of the world's most important politicians. French President François Hollande met with Greek Cypriot President. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said that an end to the 4-decade division of Cyprus was within reach, as he visited both sides of the Mediterranean island to support peace talks. And Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov visited to meet with his Cypriot counterpart. Britain joined the U.S.-led bombing campaign over Syria and are using a Cyprus Air Force base as their takeoff point. Royal Air Force planes hit an oil field held by Islamic State jihadists just hours after a decisive parliamentary vote authorized airstrikes. Britain already has 8 Tornado fighter jets plus drones involved in the U.S.-led coalition striking IS targets in Iraq and Syria. An Australian archaeological team on Cyprus has uncovered a theatre dating from 300 BC, the oldest structure of its kind yet unearthed on the Mediterranean island. Excavations at the site of the Hellenistic Roman theatre of Nea Paphos on Cyprus' southwestern coast were conducted by the Australian Archaeological Mission from the University of Sydney. Cyprus recorded a 17.4% jump in key tourism revenue in September, the Mediterranean island's highest percentage rise for 17 months. The Eurozone member is benefiting from an upsurge in arrivals from Britain, Germany, Greece, and Israel, countries that have traditionally provided the bulk of its tourists. The state-run Cyprus Tourism Organization said the island had made a dynamic turnaround after a bad start to the year when 5 of the first 6 months saw revenue declines.
The Maronites are a Christian religious group situated in the Levant, mainly in the area of modern Lebanon. In Cyprus, their history is a story of persecution and a struggle to preserve their faith and freedom. In the late 7th century, because of Arab raids in Syria, they immigrated to the island. And today, the Maronites of Cyprus are refugees again as a result of the 1974 Turkish invasion. To hear more about their story, we're now joined by Mr. Antonis Hadjiroussos, the Maronite representative at the Parliament. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Thank you for calling us about to speak about my community in Cyprus.
So tell us, what is the most serious problem facing the Maronite community in Cyprus?
Well, as a result of the 1974 war, our community has most of the members of my community left their villages, which are all under the Turkish occupied area. So most of the people, or 95% of our people now, they are refugees away from their villages.
I wanted to ask you, how is the struggle for survival reflected in everyday life and in politics?
When they left their villages, they came into the cities among the big population, and they were either workers or they were trying to find a job to survive. So this is and until now, our community, they are in this difficult position. It's they don't have the means to sort of live as a community.
Mr. Antonis Hadjiroussos, thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you also.
The oldest type of wine in the world, Commanderia, apparently originated in Cyprus. According to a legend, in 1191, King Richard, the Lionheart of England, referred to it at his wedding as the wine of kings and the king of wines. Marina Andornico, the manager of Rebecca's Spirit Winery, which produces the Commanderia, now joins us from Limassol. Hi, thank you for being with us.
Hello.
So, can you tell us what is the first recorded mention of this one? How do we actually know that this is the oldest type of wine in the world?
What reveals that the Commanderia is one of the oldest wines in the world is the fact that the ancient Greek poet Homer refers to the Cyprus wine as well through the poem Works and Days by Hesiod, who lived around the same time as Homer, described in 800 BC. According to Paphos mosaics, from illustrations of the house of the ancient Greek god of wine during festivities, he offered his guests Cyprus wine. Furthermore, through excavations by the Greek Cypriot archaeologist Dikeos, who found evident that Limassol, specifically at Arami region, there was a center that produced wine made up to 5,000 years old. All of this evidence clearly proves that Cyprus wine, Commanderia, is indeed the oldest brand in the world.
What historical figure is known to have tasted it?
Yes, later on, after Lusenians bought Cyprus from Richard the Lionheart, according to documents, they divided Cyprus into regions with governors. One of the biggest regions was Limassol, specifically Arami region, which was named La Grande Commanderie.
The taste of the commanderia had probably changed throughout the years, but is there something that remained?
Through years that passed, the sweet taste and the perfumes stay isolated. What characterizes Commandaria is the unique region of grapes that have been cultivated since ancient times.
Marina, thank you so much for this information, and cheers, of course. And thank you all for focusing with us on Cyprus. Next week, we promise to take you out of the studio and take you to the heart of the world. Just wait and see.